Hi guys, welcome back. And you guys haven't heard from me. Well, you have heard from me, but like when it comes to reading, you haven't heard from me in a while. But today we're going to be reading another part of the Happily Ever After story book. I lost it a couple months back, so I couldn't find it, so I couldn't continue. But I finally realized where I put it, so we are going to continue reading the Happily Ever After storybook. Now, before we begin, hit that like, hit the notification button. And if you can't, since I put my videos for kids, because this video is for kids, you can go to any of my other videos and comment on them or press the notification bell. Alright, so our next one is Cinderella 2nd, Aim to Please. We're back, cried Cinderella. Through the carriage window, she saw the beautiful white castle glowing in the sunset. Welcome home, said the prince. Cinderella and the prince had just been married, and they were returning from their honeymoon. I still can't believe I'm going to live in a castle, Cinderella said. Are you sure this isn't just a dream? The prince chuckled. You're a princess now, he told his bride. Princess Cinderella. They stepped out of the carriage and headed toward the castle. But before they reached the entrance, the king came rushing out. Off we go, he told the prince. We have important matters to attend to. Now? The prince said. Father, I can't just abandon my princess. Not with the royal banquet only 2 days away. She hasn't had time to prepare. Your Majesty, offered Prudence, the head servant. I can take care of the preparations as always. Just show Cinderella what to do, interrupted the king. We have a princess now. It's her duty to plan the banquet. He hurried into the carriage. I'm sorry to rush off, said the prince. Don't worry, Cinderella replied. I'll be fine. But the next morning, Cinderella wasn't so sure. When she looked into the mirror, she hardly recognized herself with her fancy hairdo and stuffed new gown. Couldn't I just wear one of my own dresses? Cinderella asked. Prudence and the other servants. It simply isn't done, Prudence said hatedly. Then they took Cinderella to the kitchen for training. There were so many rules to learn, even what kind of dessert to serve at the banquet. Stewed prunes, said Prudence. Prunes? Exclaimed Cinderella. For dessert? The king expects it, Prudence answered. It is a tradition that is never broken. Cinderella's lessons lasted all morning. Every time she tried to suggest one of her own ideas for the banquet, Prudence shook her head and said the same thing. It simply isn't done. Then she gave Cinderella more rules to follow. That afternoon, the servant tried to help Cinderella. They quizzed her about the rules. Gold or silver, they asked. Fish or foil, sorry guys. Stand or sit, left or right. I don't know, cried poor Cinderella. She was just about worn out when she spotted the baker, the flower seller, and some of the other villagers at the castle gates. My friends, she cried happily. Open the gates. No, Prudence scolded. You must remember the rules. Commoners are never allowed in the palace. It simply isn't done." Stunned by Prudence's remarks, Cinderella ran up to her room. Once in her room, she started to cry. Cinderella was comforted by her mouse friends. She explained that she was having a hard time understanding all the new rules, especially that rule about keeping commoners out of the palace. She said, "Why, I was a dish maid when the prince married me." Suddenly, Cinderella realized that she didn't have to obey anyone's rules about how to act. She was her own person, and she could make her own decisions. "I'm going to plan this banquet my way," Cinderella cried to the mouse. "My first step was to let her hair down and put on her own comfortable clothes." Now Cinderella felt like herself. "I know I can do this," she said. "I just have to stop trying to be someone else." Next, Cinderella marched outside. "Open the gates," she cried out. She walked through the village, passing out banquet invitations to all the commoners: the butcher, the baker, the flower seller, dear friends she had known her whole life. Back at the castle, Cinderella headed straight for the kitchen. "This party needs help," she said, starting with dessert. What should she serve? There must be something better than stewed prunes. Then she had a great idea. "Chocolate pudding," declared Cinderella. "Now that sounds good." Cinderella's next step was the ballroom. There was no way she was going to dance some boring old dance, even if it was the king's favorite. Instead, she showed the servants a living waltz. "We never get to dance like this," one of the maids said with a giggle. Suddenly, Prudence stormed into the ballroom. "It simply isn't done," she said with a gasp. "It simply isn't done." Cinderella tried to reassure her. "I know this is a big change," she said, "but I have to try things my way." "Well then," said Prudence, "I certainly hope you know what you're doing." "I hope so too," thought Cinderella. It was almost time for the banquet. Cinderella put on her favorite dress and her favorite necklace, and she fixed her hair just the way she liked it. Shortly, she heard carriages rumbling up to the castle. "It's too late to turn back now," she said. Cinderella tiptoed downstairs to the ballroom. She was scared to look. What if everyone was having a terrible time? But it was a wonderful party. The orchestra was playing a merry tune, and the royal guests and commoners were dancing together like the best of friends. Cinderella quickly joined in and began dancing with the others. All at once, trumpets began to blow. The king's carriage had arrived. Cinderella had butterflies in her stomach. What would the king say? Would he be angry about all the changes she had made? She held her breath as the king walked in. He stopped and stared. Commoners in the palace? The orchestra's playing a waltz? At that moment, a servant ran by with a big silver bowl. Smack! He bumped right into the king. Split the bowl, landed right on the king's head. "What the blaze is going on here?" the king bellowed from beneath the bowl. This is all Cinderella's doing, cried Prudence, standing nearby. I tried to teach her, but she refused to listen. The king pointed to his head. And what is this? Your dessert, sir, whispered Cinderella. No prunes? He cried angrily. Then he took a taste. Chocolate, my favorite. All the servants and guests were staring at the king nervously. Even the orchestra had stopped playing. Suddenly, the king began to laugh. What happened to the music? He called out. Everybody dance. Then he turned to Prudence and Cinderella, who both looked worried. I always said we need some new traditions around here. Splendid job. Splendid. It is the princess who deserves your praise, sir, Prudence told him honestly. And I'm honored to be at Her Highness's service. Cinderella smiled at Prudence. I think we're going to be great friends. Just then, the prince arrived. He swept Cinderella into his arms and gave her a big hug. Then he looked around at all the changes. Did I miss something? He asked. Surprise! Cried Cinderella. She then explained everything to him. The king escorted Cinderella and the prince over to their thrones. I told my son he had chosen well, he announced, booming at Cinderella. You're unnatural. The king slipped a glittery crown onto Cinderella's head. Hooray! Everyone cheered. Another dance, ordered the king. I'm glad you did things your own way, the prince told Cinderella. She blushed. Someday I will get this princess thing right. The prince leaned over and gave Cinderella a kiss. I think that day is today, he answered with a smile. Well, that's all for today, my young children. Hopefully you were all tucked in and listened to the story before bed. And hopefully you'll enjoy the next story. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.